Stop studying the way you are. You're likely wasting your precious time. If you're like most students, you're probably squandering as much as 80% of your study time without even realizing it. Haven't you ever spent countless hours cramming, only to draw a blank during the exam? Students unfortunately learn effective study methods too late in their academic journey. But don't worry, by the time you finish this, you'll be equipped with the knowledge to study smarter, not harder, and save yourself from years of potential frustration. Imagine this scenario. You're desperately trying to fill a bucket with water, but there are gaping holes all over it. No matter how much water you pour in, most of it just leaks out, leaving you empty-handed. Frustrating, isn't it? Well, that's precisely what most students do when they study. They dedicate hours attempting to absorb information, but their brains don't retain much of it. And the worst part is, they're often completely oblivious to this unproductive cycle. Now, let's get down to brass tacks and address the biggest mistakes that are rendering your study sessions almost entirely useless. Mistake number 1. Highlighting and rereading. The common belief among students is that highlighting their textbooks and repeatedly rereading notes will somehow magically imprint the material into their memory. But here's a shocking revelation. Studies have revealed that rereading boasts a measly retention rate of only 10%. Yes, you read that right. If you reread a chapter today, by next week, you'll have forgotten a staggering 90% of it. It might feel productive because your brain recognizes the words on the page, but recognition is not synonymous with understanding or true memorization. Think about it this way. If you watch the same movie over and over again, does that suddenly make you an expert on filmmaking? Of course not. You're simply becoming more familiar with the storyline and the characters. And that's precisely what happens with passive rereading. It's familiarity, not mastery. Mistake number 2. Cramming at the last minute. Let's be honest, we've all been there. We've all crammed for a test at some point in our academic lives, staying up all night, fueled by copious amounts of caffeine and frantically stuffing information into our brains as if it were a suitcase that we're desperately trying to close. But cramming simply doesn't work in the long run. Sure, you might manage to recall some of it for the test the next day, but within a few days, most of that information will be gone. Poof, vanished into thin air. Here's the cold, hard truth. Your brain treats crammed information like junk mail, discards it because it perceives it as irrelevant and unnecessary. You're essentially forcing it in without giving your brain any compelling reason to hold on to it. And if you're thinking, well, I only need to remember it for the test, here's another hard truth. The students who genuinely master the material will consistently outperform you in the long run, whether it's in class, in college, or in their future careers. Mistake number 3. Studying passively. This is another massive pitfall that many students fall into. Studying passively means that you simply read, watch, or listen without actively engaging with the information. It's akin to being a mere spectator rather than a participant. Imagine you want to learn how to swim. Would you simply read a book about swimming and then jump into a pool expecting to be an expert? Of course not. You'd likely drown. Yet, when it comes to studying, most students do exactly that. They read the textbook, watch a lecture, and assume they've learned the material. But unless you actively engage with the information by testing yourself, teaching it to someone else, or practicing it, it simply won't stick. Now that you're aware of these common mistakes, the burning question is, how do you actually study the right way? That brings us to a game-changing paradigm shift. Here's the truth. Studying isn't about the quantity of time you spend. It's about the quality of what you retain. Some students can study for 3 hours and forget everything the next day, while others can study for just 1 hour and remember most of it for life. The key difference lies in how they approach studying. Most people treat studying like mindless repetition, but real learning occurs when your brain is actively challenged, when it struggles, when it makes connections, and when it retrieves information on its own. Therefore, retention is greater than consumption. Instead of mindlessly consuming information, you need to focus on retaining it in a way that actually sticks. Let me introduce you to the learning pyramid. This simple concept can revolutionize the way you study forever. At the base of the pyramid, we have reading. This has a retention rate of only 10%. This means if you solely rely on reading your textbook, you're forgetting 90% of what you read. Next, we have lectures. When you sit in class and passively listen to a teacher talk, you retain about 20% of the information. Moving up the pyramid, we have watching demonstrations. That yields about 30% retention. But here's where things get truly powerful. When you actively engage with the information, retention skyrockets. Practicing a concept has a retention rate of 75%, while teaching it to someone else boasts an impressive 90% retention rate. That means if you genuinely want to remember what you study, you need to stop simply reading and start actively recalling, teaching, and applying the information. And that's exactly what we're about to break down step by step. Step 1. Active recall and testing. If you aspire to remember more in half the time, you need a strategy called active recall. Active recall forces your brain to do the heavy lifting. Instead of passively taking in information, you actively pull it out from memory, which is what makes it stick. And the best way to do this is through two science-backed techniques. Strategy 1. The Feynman technique. This technique operates on the principle that if you can't explain something in simple terms, you don't truly understand it. Here's how it works. Pick a concept and try to teach it to a 5-year-old. If you struggle, go back and relearn the parts you got stuck on. This process reveals exactly where the gaps in your knowledge lie. Refine your explanation until it's crystal clear. This works because teaching forces your brain to organize information, making it easier to recall later. Strategy 2. Past papers and self-quizzing. Here's a fact. The top students don't necessarily study more. They test themselves more. Instead of simply rereading, they actively quiz themselves using flashcards, past exam papers, or self-made quizzes. A real-world case study revealed that students who quizzed themselves before studying scored a remarkable 50% higher on exams than those who just passively read their notes. Step 2. Spaced repetition and the forgetting curve. Did you know that you forget 50% of what you learn within just 1 hour? This phenomenon is known as the forgetting curve, and it explains why cramming is ultimately ineffective. Your brain is wired to forget things it doesn't use. But here's the good news. You can hack your memory to remember more with less effort by employing spaced repetition. Instead of attempting to memorize everything in one sitting, spread it out over time. Here's how to implement spaced repetition in 3 simple steps. Day 1. Learn the material. Day 3. Quick review, approximately 10 minutes. Day 7. Self-test without notes. Step 3. How to make studying a daily habit. The real challenge lies in consistently sticking to a study routine. Most people struggle because they procrastinate, feel overwhelmed, or experience burnout. So, let's address those challenges with 3 simple habit hacks. Hack 1. The 2-minute rule. This is a psychological trick that effectively stops procrastination in its tracks. Instead of telling yourself, I have to study for an hour, tell yourself, I'll just read 1 page, or I'll just do 1 flashcard. Once you start, your brain often shifts into might as well keep going mode. Hack 2. Habit stacking. Attach studying to a routine you already perform consistently. For example, after brushing your teeth, review 1 flashcard. After breakfast, do a 5-minute quiz. After dinner, summarize 1 concept in your own words. By linking studying to an existing habit, it becomes automatic, just like brushing your teeth. Hack 3. Avoid burnout with the Pomodoro technique. If studying feels like a marathon, your brain will resist. Instead, use the Pomodoro technique. 25 minutes of deep focus, followed by a 5-minute break. Repeat this cycle 4 times, then take a longer break. Now, here's the hard truth. Even the best study techniques won't help you if you don't use them consistently. Students cram for hours the night before and then wonder why they forget everything. But the real secret lies in small, daily effort, which consistently beats last-minute panic. If you found this helpful, hit like and subscribe so you never miss a game-changing tip. Good luck with your studies. Now go crush it.